React is one of the most popular JavaScript library, which is evident from the fact that almost 20,000 components of Facebook are written in React. Not only this, we daily come across these applications like Facebook, Twitter, and Gmail, which are all single page applications in which we can easily use React. Keeping this popularity in mind, we at Great Learning have come up with this tutorial on React.js. In this course, we will first understand the basics, then we will try to implement those basics, and throughout the course, we will be implementing each and everything that we learn. Before we get started, I want you to introduce you to Great Learning Academy, a free initiative by Great Learning. You can access over 200 plus courses with 1000 plus hours of free content on trending high demand domains absolutely free. Register now to complete the course and get your free certificate of completion. Check out the link in the description of the video below. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I want to request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any new updates on video releases from Great Learning. If you enjoyed this video, show us some love and like this video. Knowledge increases by sharing, so make sure you share this video with your friends and colleagues. Make sure to comment on this video any queries or suggestions, and I will respond to your comments. In this course, we will first talk about the prerequisites, wherein we will talk about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Then we will talk about what is React and why we should learn React. Then we will talk about single page applications like Gmail, Facebook, and Twitter. These are all the single page applications. Then we will talk about local setup, wherein we will see which is the development server that we are going to use. And in this case, we will talk about a little bit about Node.js. Then we'll talk about one of the easiest way to get started in React, that is using create React app tool. Then we will talk about the steps involved in getting this tool started. Then we will talk about the next generation JavaScript features like let, keyword, const keyword, arrow functions, export, import, and etc. And finally, we'll conclude our course with basics of React. Now let's talk about the prerequisites. What are the things that you should know in order to understand React.js? First thing that is there is HTML, hypertext markup language. So you should be able to understand the basic tags. What are they? The paragraph tags, the title, body, HTML tags, and all those things. Also, div tags, span tags, attributes, some if you want to add some CSS or JavaScript, you should be able to know those things. Then CSS, cascading style sheets, basic styling. You should be able to understand how you can apply those styling. What are the different selectors, class, ID, and element. Then you should be able to understand JavaScript, how you create objects with the help of string literals, as well as with the help of new keyword functions, declaration, expressions, and arrow functions. Control flow statements, if, else if, all these basic control flow statements. DOM manipulation, how you can select the HTML element or HTML object and then manipulate it, and basic events. So now let's quickly go ahead and see what are the things that you should know in HTML, or just to give you a brief intro about HTML. So what is this HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So whenever you're talking about this hypertext, what does this mean? So website is nothing but the collection of web pages. So if we have this web page 1, that is VB1 and VB2. Okay. And now when you want to link this web page with this, how would you do that? So basically, let's suppose in this, if you have a title and in this you have written home and then there is about us. When you click on this about us, this is the about page. And in this about page, you have some 2 paragraphs and then the footer. And then this home page also, you have some paragraph and you have some images at the end. So this is web page 1 and this is web page 2. So this linking that is there between these web pages is nothing but your hypertext. And anything that defines the structure using these elements, that is the paragraph tag or the image tags, is your markup language. So basically, HTML is nothing but a language to create web pages. Now, anything that is related to how your web page looks and how it displays the content with the help of elements is your basically HTML. And it defines the structure
of your web page. And now if you want to save a file, you have to use this extension, that is html.html, in order to save the file. Now let's quickly go ahead and see the demo of it. The editor that I'm going to use is Sublime. And in this, what I'm going to do, first I'm going to save the file. So I will name it demo.html, which is the extension. Now once the file is saved, let's write HTML and then press a tab. So whenever you press a tab, this is nothing but auto completion. Now, the more powerful your editor is, the more functionality you will have, like auto completion, indentation. You see the indentation? What I mean by indentation is making it helps us to make it much more readable. You see the space that is from this head tag and this title tag that is there. So this is nothing but your indentation. The coloring which you see, the highlight which represents, okay, this is these are all the HTML tags. Okay, so all of these things are dependent upon your editor. So now when you talk about this is nothing but, this whole is nothing but the boilerplate, or you can see that it is the skeleton of your HTML page. And every HTML page that is there in your on your internet will have this boilerplate. So this first statement that is there, or the first line, represents what is the version or which HTML version you are using, and it's specifying this thing to the browser. So then you have the root element, which is this HTML tag. If I remove this, so this is the root element and everything falls under it. Okay, now if you see this head tag, and this is the head tag which is after the HTML tag, and it is followed by one body tag. Okay, in this head tag, anything that you write, all the metadata, that is information about the web page, will never be rendered on the browser, and it contains all the information about your HTML page. It contains title tag, which is useful while you're searching, and while we are searching for some things, right? Let's suppose you're searching for a website, and whatever is in the title will be on your whenever you search it on the Google Chrome or any browser. When you're trying to search something, the first link that is there, it is with the help of, or due to the reason that that thing will be there in your title. I will show you when I show you on the website, the Great Learning Academy. I will you give the source and you see the title, and that link which is there will be same. Then this title is there, and it will be always present in the tab section of your home of your website. So let's name it homepage, and I will see where it is. Okay, so anything that is related to this HTML page that is linking with CSS files or JavaScript files will be here in the head tag. Now anything that is present in the body will always be rendered. So let's create one paragraph tag and then write lorem. So p tag is used for creating a paragraph. When I wrote lorem and then press a tab, so this is the gibberish text that I will get. This text does not mean anything, but it is better than writing ABC. Another paragraph. So let's create one more paragraph and like lorem and then press a tab. So we have two paragraphs over here. And also let's include one strong tag, which is nothing but it is similar to your bold tag. So bold tag was something that is related to the styling, and now we strongly believe in HTML5 that we need to separate our concerns, that is separation of concerns. If we are an HTML which defines the structure, should be different. If you are something which is CSS, which is the styling, should be different on a different files. And similarly for JavaScript. So this strong tag, let's suppose let's name write some message in it, welcome user, and then create one more tag, that is the emphasis tag, which is similar to italic tag that we used to have. So again, separation of concerns, same thing, that em represents the structure, and wherein italic tag, I tag, was used something that is related to styling. So let's say goodbye user. Okay, done. So now let's save this file and let's run this. How do you run it? Go into the same desktop where you have saved, double click on it, and then, okay, where is it? So then whatever you, when I double clicked on it, and you have this home with this home page that you wrote this home page in the title section, and this is the home page that you have over here in this tab. Then you have welcome user, which is bold, and then you have italic tag or the emphasis tag, which is there, goodbye user, and this is the paragraph. These are two paragraphs that were there. So now if you're searching for Great Learning Academy, so let's write Great Learning Academy. Let's write it again. Now when I click on this link, okay, and when I press view page source, okay, view page source, control view, you can also use. So now whenever I search for this thing, right, the first link that was there, that this name, free online course with certificates in India, Great Learn, this is the name that will be specified in the title. So I have this, let's give it some time. I have this view the page or the source page that is there. And I see the title tag. Just look for it. You have the title tag over here. You see the same name that was there in the search whenever I was looking for it is similar to what was here. Okay, so this helps us in finding these web pages. Okay, so free online courses with certificates in India, Great Learning Academy, great. So we have the same name over here in the title. So similarly, you will have it over here as well. When I go on to this, it will show you great learning online courses with certificates in India, Great Learning Academy, great learning. Okay, so this is the significance of title tag. So this was all about HTML. Now let's talk about CSS. So CSS stands for cascading style sheets. Okay. So anything that was present in our web page, right? The structure. Now, if you want to add some styles to this web page, we are going to use CSS. Now, if HTML defines the structure of your house, now CSS is the look and feel of that house. It is a language which helps us to make our web pages or collection of web pages, which is a website, more presentable. Okay, it's designed to make style sheets for the web. Now let's break this acronym, that is CSNS. C stands for cascading, which means falling of styles, which is nothing but one style will take priority over the other. So let's suppose you have three styles applied on the same tag. Then what is happening? The inline CSS. We'll talk about what this inline CSS is in a minute. So it will take the priority over the two. So falling of styles also refers to if there are two or three different files added to the same or same HTML file at that time, the one that is closer will take the priority. So this is what we mean by falling of styles. What do you mean by style? Adding designs or styling our HTML tags. There are different ways: inline, external, or internal, right? Then sheets, that we will create a different CSS document in which we will apply our styles. Now let's quickly go ahead and see a demo of it. So this is the HTML page that we created. Now if we want to apply a simple style and we want to apply inline CSS, we write style tag, and then this style tag, let's change the color property, which is the face property, and which means that we are changing the text of this whole paragraph to red. Earlier it was black. Let's save this file and let's run this file. So just press reload and done. Now this is an inline CSS and it is redundant. How? If you want to apply the same style on a different paragraph, we need to repeat ourselves, and we don't want to do that. Now what is the alternative? You can write inline, or also known as internal CSS. This is the inline and we'll write now internal CSS, which is with the help of style tag. And in this style tag, what you can just remove this. This is optional, and we'll select this tag, that is the P tag, and then apply style property, that is change the color to green, let's suppose. Done. Let's save this file and let's remove this. Okay, we don't need this. Let's save this file and let's see if we are able to make the changes in both the documents. Yes, right. Now this is also somewhat not much more efficient as compared to, you can say that is not also efficient. Why? Because let's suppose you have two HTML documents and you want to apply the same style. Now you need to again write this thing, style tag, in both these HTML documents, which is again redundancy. Now we want to remove that. For that we will use the external CSS. And for that, first of all, let's create a new file and let's save this file on the same location, that is the desktop, and let's name it demo dot with the extension CSS. Done. Now the next thing is that we'll write it with click or link these HTML documents with the CSS with the help of link tag, and the type of this is text slash CSS, and then the name of this CSS file, that means we are linking it, right? CSS. Done. Let's save this file and let's select the same paragraph tag, and this time around let's change the color to orange. So you have many different properties, you can use that. Okay, so orange. Done. Let's save this file and let's run this file. See, the text property has been, the color property has been changed. So this is known as external CSS, and this is the most efficient way with which you can do it. So you have different properties, you can different attributes that you can change, background image, or you can add an image, you can change the background, you can you use a border. So all those things can be used. Now the next thing I want to discuss here is the selector. So we are selecting with the help of tag name. You can similarly do with the help of class name. Okay, you can write a class and then the name of the class, let's suppose, what's the name of this class, let's say unique, or you can say group. So you write group and let's save this. For selecting the class you will use the dot operator. So dot and then the name of the class, which was group, and done. So it was grp, yes, grp, done. Let's save this file and let's rename this or change. Okay, so now what happens over here, for this paragraph tag, which in which we included this class grp, the text color was changed to orange. And if you want to do it for the both, we can use this same thing over here as well. Once that is done, let's save this file and we are selecting both of these paragraphs, we're clubbing them, and then the changes are done successfully. Okay, so this is selector, the selector that we used as a class. Similarly, we can have id, which is unique for every page. So this is it for this is the whole introduction to CSS. We do have different courses available on our Great Learning Academy, both for HTML as well as CSS. You can go through them and understand the basic or introduction, how to include all those things, different things. In those courses, we have discussed everything. Now let's try to understand what is this JavaScript. So it is the verb of a web page. Now, if HTML is the noun, right? HTML is the noun, then JS is the verb. That means any actions that you will perform on a web page is that you are using JavaScript. So any actions, right? If you click on this, what should happen? If you want to click on, if you clicked on this, should its size get increased or should it vanish? Any actions that you perform, okay? It is an object-oriented programming language that uses JIT, that is just-in-time compiler, which is nothing but the best of two worlds. One is the compiler and the second is the interpreter. So in compiler, what happens? It will take the whole code and compile it at once. But there was a drawback, that this was much prone to errors, right? And in interpreter it was a line by line check, but when you have a code like in a while loop, it goes on checking it again and again. Therein it takes the advantage of this compiler. That means it takes this as a whole and runs it. Okay, so these are the best of compiler as well as the interpreter is used by this JavaScript. It is everywhere and it's installed with all the web browsers, and we'll see different ways how to include JavaScript in our HTML file, as well as see the thing how we can run it in our browsers. So JavaScript applications can range from web development, mobile development, etc. It is easy and very simple and compatible with HTML and CSS. We'll see how to include this with our HTML and CSS file, which we have already created. And if you're looking for a software engineering role, it is a must to have skill. So let's quickly go ahead and see a demo of it. So this is the HTML page that we have already created with the CSS also linked with it. So now how can you include the JavaScript? So you will write script tag over here, right? So it can be again, it can be something that is internal script that you're using, right? So it's within the HTML page, or you can use the external. So once I am using this external script, it is the most efficient way, just like CSS. So now we will be creating three different files: one for HTML, that is defining the structure; one for CSS, that is adding styles; and one for adding actions to our web page. So we'll write the script tag and then the source of this. Once again, then the source of this file. Let's name it demo.js. So let's save this file. Let's create a new file. Scroll it over here and let's save this file and let's save it on the desktop as well. Desktop demo.js. So we have demo.css, demo.html, and demo.js. So now if we want to just check if our JavaScript is connected, so you can just write a console statement, that is console.log, and then print connected. That's it, right? Just a message on the console. Let's save this file, and we haven't made any changes over here. Let's save this as well. Go into the browser, just run it. You see nothing is happening. You have to go into the console, inspect. Control Shift I can be also used for console. See the connected. So this is the fact that we have connected successfully our JavaScript file with our HTML page. Now you can also, just for debugging, you can also write your JavaScript in this console. So let's suppose you're writing, you create a variable with the help of var keyword. So var keyword can be used. You write var a, and let's name it something different. So you will write var HTML, HTM, and in this, let's suppose you name some string as our. Now, if you want to print that string, you can write console.log and htm and then present. Okay, so this is how you can run your JavaScript directly in the console. So you have some inbuilt function, just like we have this console, that is the, you can say, the window objects. Okay, so similarly we have set interval, set interval, clear interval. So set interval is something which takes two arguments. One is the callback function, which is used to run this thing again and again. So let's suppose the callback function is that you will use one function. Let's create an anonymous function over there. Mm, or let's create some function and then create it later on. So first, let's create a function. For creating a function, you write a keyword function, and let's name it fun, the name of the function, and it doesn't take any argument. It's just writing what console. It just prints out some message. So let's print out some message. Console.log. Hello. Let's save this file and let's close this file. Done. So our function is created. Now we want to, after a certain interval, we want this function to be called again and again and again. So we'll use this function. That means this is our callback function, which is fun. We don't call it, we just write it. Done. This is our callback function. And after how many intervals? So let's suppose after every 1 second, that is 1000 milliseconds, which is every 1 second. And let's save this file and run it. Now you see, hello is created. Hello is called one. Now this number keeps on changing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it keeps on changing. Now it will execute unless and until you have this number one that was returned. So in order to stop the set interval, you can say that, okay, now clear the interval, and you need to pass in that argument, which is one, and done. Now it won't be working. So you see, hello is stuck at 23 because we cleared the interval. Now it is not, we are not running it again and again after every 1 second. So these are all what you can say that these are all window objects, and these are some inbuilt functions that are there in our JavaScript. Okay, so how do you link it externally? So you write the script tag, and that you will write the source of your JavaScript file. That is the name of the JavaScript file, demo.js, and the type is text/JavaScript. And you include this in the head part, or it can be included in the body part, right? So depending upon when you want to call this script. Okay, so if you have the script connected and the head part, and you wrote this message, that is alert message, which is again an inbuilt function. Apparently I can't. So you have this alert function. I can't spell the alert. So you have this alert function over here, and in this it will just now prompt a message. Okay, so let's say hello user. Okay, so now let's save this file. Now this is present, the script is present. Let's close this thing. So script is present at the start before the body tag. So now when I run this, mm, something is not correct. So let's go back. Cannot spell it. Alert. Done. Let's save this. Now you see, you are getting this message. This page says hello user. Unless and until we don't press OK, that means we will not be having that body, whatever is in the body part will not be rendered, will not run. So now when I press OK, now the render is done. So this is why, this is the reason, because we have included our script tag in the head part. So it will run first and then the body part will run. Okay, so if your application requires that you want to run your script at the end, you can just put it over here at the end before the body is closed. Okay, let's save this file, and this is all the basic what you can say, how to include your JavaScript and what are the things that you should know are covered. Okay. So this is the basic understanding, or this covers the basic prerequisite of JavaScript in this course. So if you want to learn more, there's already a course available on our Great Learning Academy, and it is related to JavaScript, and you will get the brief introduction about JavaScript in that course.
Now, what is React? React is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. Now, there's a difference between a library and a framework. Library is a pre-written code that is developed already, right? Everything is done already. It is in its original form. That means there are no errors. There will be no errors, and it's compiled for us. We just have to use it. It is readily available for us. For example, map.js, day.js. These are some libraries. Now, a framework is something wherein the control of your application is not up to you. It is up to the framework, which is not in the case of library. Now, React was developed by Facebook in 2011, right? It was developed in 2011. Now, what is the beauty of this React is that you are able to divide your web page into components. Now, we'll talk about more and more about these components while we move ahead with this course, right? For now, you can think of these components as something which you can reuse again and again by making minimal changes. Okay. Now, why should you go for React? So there are alternatives like AngularJS, right? Vue.js. Now, AngularJS is a framework, and now the control of your application will not be up to you, right? So, which is not in the case of React. So, reusing components, as we spoke earlier about what components, right? Now you will be able to reuse these components as your web page is divided into components, right? It is easy to learn. While we complete this course, you see that all the necessary things that are required to learn React will be covered. So it's very easy to learn, and it is trusted by some leading companies like Facebook, Netflix, PayPal, Tesla, etc. Right? So all of these use something. Some components are written in React or the other. Okay, and there are a lot of job opportunities on React. And most of them are for freshers and some with experience as well. Okay. And it is mainly used for single page applications. Now you might be thinking, what is this single page application? So a single page application is that you are going to make a single request, right? To the server. Earlier in the traditional system, right? What used to happen that you used to send a request to your server, and then the response came back, and then again the server it goes to the server and then responds, and this to and fro movement was very much time consuming. Now what happens, the HTML, CS, and JavaScript as the response, right? So what can be a response? So basically, it can be an HTML in the form of HTML tags, CSS, or JavaScript. Anything can be a response, right, from the server. Now, this was the case in earlier traditional systems, right? But in single page application, what happens? There is a single request and a single response. Now, how do we do that? With the help of virtual DOMs, right? There is something which is known as virtual DOM. That means part of that of your web page gets updated, or it gets what you say refreshed, right? Whenever you send a response, right? Whenever you send a request, and that is handled by React. React only updates that object in the actual DOM, right? It first figures out which particular object needs to be updated, and then once that is done, and then only it updates the actual DOM. Okay, so there's the concept of virtual DOM and the actual DOM, thus making that to and fro movements that were done earlier minimal. Okay, which obviously improves time. Obviously, time is efficient, bandwidth is reduced, and it improves performance. Some of the single page applications that you might have been using already, like Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, right? So these are all single page applications. Now let's talk about local setup. So we are going to download and install Node.js. Now, why? Because there are some components in React DOM which are built in such a way that those components, or those, what do you say, those components are specifically designed to work with Node.js, and it helps us to making server-side rendering, that is what we used in single page applications, right? It helps us to reduce the number of lines of code and also makes those rendering very easy, right? And so what all over the developers all across the world, when they need to execute react.js code, they directly use node.js environment. For that same purpose, we are going to use node.js. It contains node package manager, that is npm, which helps us to manage these JavaScript libraries, right? Basically, what is Node.js? Again, it is a runtime environment, right? Runtime environment. Again, it is written in JavaScript, and React is again a library which is written in JavaScript. So you see, this npm helps us to manage those JavaScript packages and also provides us the development server, right? And we're going to also install, you can install any or you can download and install any editor. In this course, I'm going to use Sublime Text. Feel free to use any of the editors like Visual Studio Code or Atom. Okay, so now let's see how to install this and download this. So just type in nodejs.org, and here you see two versions, right? This is the latest feature, and this is LTS, long-term support. This is recommended for most of the users. Just click on this and it will start downloading. Once this is downloaded, just double click on this setup and it will check first. It will compute the space requirements, whatever are the space requirements. Do your system have those requirements? Is the space available? So it will take some time. So we're going to wait till it completes. And in the meantime, the another thing that you need to install is this. I'm going to use a Sublime Text over here, which helps me to write my HTML or CSS and JavaScript code. Okay. So the editor I'm going to use is Sublime Text. Feel free to use Atom if you want to use, or if you want to use Visual Studio Code, or even what notepad plus plus. But the more powerful your editor is, the more functionalities you will get. For example, auto highlight is there, auto indentation is there, auto completion is there. These are all the features. The more powerful your editor is, the more features you have. Okay, so it has checked the space requirements. Now click on next. Click on this checkbox, say I accept the terms in the license agreement, and click on next. If you want to change the path, if you want, I don't think there's a need to change this location, but if you want, feel free to change it over here. For me, I'm going to keep it as it is and click on next. So these are the things that it will, these are the features that will be installed. So Node.js runtime, npm manager. Okay, so these are the things. Click on next. So we want this to install this chocolatey. This script will pop up in the new window after the installation completes. So we don't want this thing. Okay, so click on next and click on install, and it will start installing. It will ask for you to make the changes on your device. Say yes. So you see, we are almost done with the setup, and we have validated the install. So it is taking a little bit time. Now, once the Node.js has been successfully installed, click on finish. Okay. So this is how you install and download Node.js, and similarly, you can do the same for any of your editors. Now let's talk about Create React App. So Create React App is one of the best practices to create a single page application. Okay. It takes care of the basic configuration. You don't need to configure or install any extra tools. Create React App does all the things for us. Be it starts from building resources, watching out for the changes, and running Babel. So, what is a Babel? Babel is basically a transpiler which converts our new JavaScript into good old ES5 JavaScript. Okay. Under the hood, what happens? There's a Babel, which is our transpiler, or you can say it helps us to convert our JavaScript into ES5. Okay. And plus there's a Webpack. Now Webpack is nothing but our bundler, which helps us to manage our resources or bundling our resources. Basically, there will be some HTML files, some CSS files, some JavaScript file. It will bundle up them and it will minify our code. It watches out for changes, any of the changes that are done in either of the files, and it helps us in running Babel. So all of these features are in Webpack. And this Create React App the tool was developed by developers in Facebook. Okay, and it gives us a head start, thus saving a lot of time. So if you want to run, or if you don't want to install Node.js, since you are going to use only this, in that case you can avoid installing and downloading Node.js. You can directly go with the command that is nix instead of npx. Okay, so if you have npm already installed, uninstall it. You can directly use nix, and it helps us to always use the latest version. But is that is only for one time use. Okay, so if you don't want to use this create react app, so basically if you don't want to use this, then you have to install node.js. Okay, now you might be thinking why we are going to use this create react app. I have already covered these things. I will just rephrase whatever I have said in a much more compact way. Okay. So basically, these are the things that are provided with the help of Create React app. So we have a webpack in that we can bundle, we can minify, we can compile our code, which is under the hood, which uses these things, right? Oh, plus the managing the resources and running the Babel. And there's a compiler, or you can say there's a transpiler, right? Which helps us to convert our JSX code into JavaScript. There's npm with the help of we have this with the help of Node.js, plus development server, which is also with the help of Node.js. Getting started with Create React app. Now the first step is to open Node.js command prompt, wherein which we have already downloaded and installed when we install Node.js. Now let's go ahead and open this and write some commands and create or get through with all of these steps. Now search in for Node.js command prompt, click on it, and it will open up this command prompt. Okay. Now type in npm install create react app globally. Okay. So now once you have entered this command and pressed enter, it will install all the required packages, right, that are required for Create React app. Now, the next step is to create one folder wherein you will create your project. Okay. So first we want to create it in D drive, and then I will make one folder there named as React. Okay, React already exists. So React demo done. And now what I will do, I will navigate to this folder. So I'll write cd react. I'll go inside this folder, React demo. Done. And then what I will do, I will go ahead and run one more command to create all the necessary packages, React DOM, React scripts that are required for this tool. Okay, so that we can run our JavaScript or JSX code easily. So for that, there's a command called create. Again, create React app, and then the name of our project. Let's call it as demo project. Okay. So now, if you there's a naming convention for naming these projects. If I write this P as capital, this will throw me an error. You see, there's an error. Yeah. See, there's a naming convention that we have to follow. So we'll write demo project. Okay, 1 minute. I pressed it again. So we'll write demo project, and it will start installing all the things that are necessary. Okay. So we should have created one more folder and navigated to that folder, but it's okay. Okay. So let it install, and we'll go through the steps in the meanwhile. Okay. It will take a couple of minutes. In fact, it will take more than a couple of minutes, almost 5 to 8 minutes. So let it install, and in the meanwhile, let's go through the steps. So step one was to open Node.js. The step two was to run a command which will help us to create this React app globally. Okay. So what we wrote npm install create React app hyphen globally. Okay. Then we first created that folder that was React app folder. And then we navigated to that React app, okay, folder. And then we wrote the command to along with the project name that was create React app. And then what was the name of the project? It was React project in this case. And we run this command, and once this command will run, it will install all the packages that are necessary, including React DOM, React, all the scripts that are required. And then at the end, we will start our npm. Okay, so now let's see how much it has installed. Now as you can see that all the dependencies, scripts, and packages, all of those were installed, and we've also got some warnings which can be ignored for now. So once we have everything in place, now just navigate to that folder which we named React project, right? Just navigate to that folder and then press enter. Okay, I think we named it something else. Just scroll up to see. Okay, we named it as demo project. So just navigate to that folder, type in demo project, and then type in npm start. Now this will help us to run our applications on our local system, right? We'll see whenever we type in, it will be under the local host, right? I'll show you. So it will start the development server, and it will open up in your default browser, and you will get this local host 3000. And whatever are the changes that you make in your code will be directly reflected in this local host. Okay, there is some default web page that is already there, and any changes that you will make while you are saving it automatically, you don't have to refresh this local host. All the changes will be updated over here, okay, in this local host. So we have gone through the step 4. We wrote the command create React app, and we created a project that was React project. In this case, in our case, it was demo project, right? And then what we did, we navigated to that project so that all the dependencies which are required will be installed in that folder. And then we pressed in npm start, which started our development server, that is our local host. This is the image that we get. And now you don't have to reload, just save and everything will be updated. Now let's talk about next generation JavaScript features. First, let's talk about let keyword. Now, this let keyword, if you observe carefully, earlier we used to have this keyword for declaring variables that is known as var. Now, if I declare a variable that is with the help of var, right, we have this gscope, which is declared inside a for loop. What happened in earlier traditional languages like Java or C or C++, we cannot access this gscope outside this block, right? Outside this block, this gscope we shouldn't be able to access it. But var had a global scope. So that is why when we use this gscope outside this block, it didn't give us any error. We were able to access it. As you can see in the output, when we have this global scope that is associated with var keyword, we were able to access it outside the block. But since this does not follow along with what we have learned in the traditional languages like Java, C, or C++, what these new JavaScript features were, we introduced this keyword that is known as let, which has a block scope. Now, if you declare your variable with the help of this let keyword, and we named it as bscope, we declared it within this block, and outside when we tried to access it, it threw an error. It said that uncaught reference error, that is bscope, is not defined, which is self-explanatory because this was defined in this block. So this was the problem that was associated with var keyword, and we introduced this keyword that is known as let. What else? There was something that is known as declaration, right? If you can see, we have declared declare again variable in this block with the help of let keyword, right? And we again defined this declare again, but this time around with the help of var keyword. Since they are in different blocks, right? This is in for block, this is in this block. As you can see, this variable has been declared in this block, and this variable has been declared in a different block. So since they are in different block, there is no error, and we can declare these two variables with same name but in a different block. But if we define these variables in the same block, right, we have this declare over here, and this is also a declare which is defined with the help of let keyword, and this is defined with the help of var keyword. This since these are in same block, this will throw an error. It will say that the identifier declare has been already defined because it was already defined, but with the help of var keyword. Now let's talk about the constant keyword. So the keyword that is there is const, right? And it is quite self-explanatory that there will be a constant reference and the value of the object, right? Since we have this object over here, which is in which we have one property that is named as Jimmy. And in this, we have this property that is named as name and which has a value of Jimmy. Since if we define a variable that is do not change and we have a value of 10 in this, right? We talked about this reference, right? Do not change. And we have this value over here that is 10. Now, if you try to change it, it will throw us an error. That means value cannot be changed, but we can change the property. Like in this object, if you talk about this object that is, which has a property name, we added one more property that is age in this object. And now if we talked about, and we can also change this name as well. We had earlier, we had this property. In this property, we had the value Jimmy. Now we have this Jim. Now, if you talk about this object, we see the updated name and the new property added in this object. That means we can change the values or properties of the object. But if we try to change the object, if we try to change the reference of the object, that means object equal to Jimmy, we cannot do it because it's a constant object, right? It is declared with the help of this constant keyword. So in nutshell, you can think of this const as a thing with the help of which you can change the properties of the object, but you cannot change its reference. Now let's talk about functions. Now, these are one of the most important features of JavaScript that you can declare functions with the help of two different methods. One is function declaration and the other is function expression. Now, this is the traditional system that this function loads at compile time when you define it with the help of this thing, what is known as function declaration. You have this keyword that is at different, that is known as function. Then you have this function name, which is known as the execute. And then whatever you do in this function, that is printing out hello, and you just call it. Done. Now this undefined, why do you have this undefined over here? Because your function is not returning anything. That is why you have this undefined over here. Okay. Now this way is known as declaring your functions in a declaration way, right? This is known as function declaration. But if you want your functions to load at runtime, you will go for function expression so that you can store this function inside this variable execute. And now, if you can see that we have this function over here, which is the same as the old, but this time around, the only thing that is different is that you are using this variable to store it. And now you will be calling it with the help of this variable, that is this execute, and it will print out by. Okay. So this is function declaration and this is function expression. Now, there is one more way, which is obviously something that is related to function expression, but in this you don't have to bind your objects or anything like that. This is a shorter way of removing that overhead of binding your objects, that is known as arrow function. So you declare your same in the same way which we used earlier in the function expression, wherein we're using this variable to store the function, but you see the function is gone, the function keyword that we used is gone, the name of the function is gone, right? We use this parenthesis and then the arrow sign, and then how you define your function, whatever your function does, that is, it prints out arrow, and you simply execute it with the help of this execute keyword that we have over here, and you call this, that's it, and it will print out arrow, right? So this is all about arrow functions. Now, there's one more keyword which helps us to import files from another JavaScript file. And we have for that, we are going to use these terms export, import very extensively. Where keyword, let, const, right? We are going to use these keywords or we are going to use these features in our React. So that is why we are going through these next generation JavaScript features. We have this keyword that is known as export so that we can export files from another JavaScript file. Now let's talk about export keyword. So this is the keyword that is used so that we can use something which is in a different JavaScript file into another file. Obviously, both of these files are JavaScript files. For example, if this is present in one file and in this, we have this constant keyword that is associated with this variable, that is the object. And in this, we have the property as name, which has the value as GL. Now this is present in one file, right? And we want to use this variable in a different file, right? So we use this keyword that is known as export, and we have this available with the help of two versions of it. That is with the help of one is with the help of default and one is without the help of default keyword. So if we use this default keyword, then there is a different way with which we will be using this or importing it in our that different file or using in that different file, right? So we use this default keyword over here and then the name of the object. Similarly, we can export our objects, that is this object, another object that is over here. And we can also have export functions, right? We have this function over here, which is an arrow function, which is just printing out the message as completed. So we use this keyword as export. Okay. So this is without, this is with default and this is without default. Now this is about exporting. Now how you are going to use it. So for that we have another keyword that is known as import, and we are going to use this import keyword. So when we used default over here, right, we use this default keyword. At that time, we can either go for the same name or a different name. Obviously, we have to use this default, this import keyword and the name of the variable. It can be same or different. And then from which file you are exporting or importing it, the name of that file. That is this file. Let's suppose the file name or file name.js. This is one file name and this is another file name. We have to use that same file name over here. Okay. So this is when we used default keyword. When we didn't use any default keyword at that time, you have to be explicit. That means you have to use the same name along with this parenthesis, along with these curly brackets. Okay. So import this curly brackets, that is your subject. Obviously, you have to be, this has to be the same subject over here and this has to be the same status over here. So status from this file and subject from this file. Okay. So this is without default keyword. Now let's talk about class keyword. So this is a keyword that is used for declaring classes, and a class is nothing but a blueprint, right? So let's suppose you are trying to create a house or you're trying to build a house. For that, you need to know what are the things that you require. So this class contains nothing but methods, which are your functions and properties that, for example, let's suppose you have the property that was associated with the object, uh, great learning. That means what is the name of the company, right? The great learning, how many employees are there. So these are all the properties that are associated with this class, great learning, right? So similarly, how do we declare this class? We have to use this keyword class for declaring the class, and then the name of the class, that is anything that can be great learning, anything. And then the constructor may or may not be there. So this is just to define the objects, okay, or declaring or initializing your properties or your or whatever are the properties. For example, in great learning, I talked about name of the company, how many employees are there, right? Location. So all of these can be initialized with the help of this constructor. Then how do you declare an object? So an object is nothing but an instance of a class. That means this is the actual uh, instance of your class. So earlier you had a blueprint. Now this is the actual instance. Okay. So you use this keyword, right? New for allocating the memory, and this is the name of the class. That means you're calling this constructor over here, right? And then you have this keyword const, and this is the object. This is the object reference. This X is your object. So with the help of this X, you can call properties or methods of the class. Okay. And similarly, you have this super keyword. If there is an inheritance and you want to use what do you mean by inheritance? That means there will be a parent class and there will be a child class. Now, this child class wants to use either the constructor or the properties of the parent class. You have to use this keyword, that is super, for accessing them. Okay. Now we have another JavaScript feature that is known as spread. So spread is an operator which is used with arrays and objects. Okay. So you have this array. This is how you define an array in JavaScript. So you have this const keyword that is for declaring, or you can use a let, or you can use a var. So you have this arr, and in this array we have 1, 2, 3 values. Now with the help of this spread operator, that means these three dots, 1, 2, and 3, and then you have arr. That means you are using this array, and then you are adding one more what a value or element to this array, and now you're storing this inside this new array. So inside your new array, you are fetching these three values from the earlier array and then adding one more to it. So this is present in your new array, and your earlier array, that is this arr, is unchanged. Okay. So spread operator is used to retrieve all the values or properties from an array or an object, or in this case it was an array, and we have to use these three dots. Okay. So we have retrieved all the previous values and inserted it in this new array, that is new arr. Okay. This is the use of spread operator. Now what about the rest operator? REST operator is used with functions, and you can use this REST operator in this way. For example, you have this function, and in this function you have this function name, that is find sum. Now in this, if you observe, when you're calling this function, you are passing in 4 arguments, but here you're using these 3 dots, that is your REST operator, and along with this variable name, that is numbers. Okay. So now what you are doing, you are forming an array of arguments that was passed by this function. So earlier you are passing 4 arguments, but what you did with the help of REST operator, you converted these arguments into an array which was named as numbers. Now you are traversing through that array, right, with the help of this for loop, and one by one you are accessing those values. So at index 0 you have 10, at index 1 you have 20, you have 30 at index 2, and 40 at index 3, and you are summing them up, and you are inserting all the values in this variable sum, and then you are returning this sum. And that is why you have this 100 over here, which is nothing but 10 plus 20 plus 30 plus 40, which is nothing but 100. So in nutshell, this is used to form an array of arguments. Now, what about destructuring operator? So destructuring is the way with which we can extract few elements. Earlier, with the help of spread operator, we were extracting all the elements, but this time around we want to access few elements from the array or from the object. So now how can we do it in the array? So you have this keyword var, and you have this values, that is the name of the array, and in this you have 10, 20, and 30. If we use spread operator, we can access all or extract all the elements, but we can access few, right? We have this spread of destructuring operator that has been used. So first, then nothing, then we don't use anything over here, and then the last, and we are accessing it, or we are fetching it with from this values array. Now if you observe carefully, now when we use this thing, right, when we use this destructuring operator, we can access 10 and 30 with the help of these variables, that is first and last. Okay. So if when you try to enter first, it will give you 10 because it's the first element and you named it, right? You named it first, you named it last. And with this destructuring operator, you can extract some elements either from the array or from the object. Now let's try to understand the basics of React. So we will be talking about several folders, the package.json folder, what does it contain, the public folder, the source folder. And then finally, we'll see how we can remove some files and see how we can run our first demo React project. Okay. So now what we will do in order to understand these folders, first what we will do, we'll go inside our project on our local system. So as you can see that we are in the D drive and in that we created the React demo and then we have our demo project over here. What we will do, the IDE that I'm going to use is IntelliJ. So I will go ahead and right click on it and open the folder as IntelliJ IDE. Okay. Well, I will open it in the IDE. So once I will click on that, what will happen? An IDE will be opened. So now as you can see that my IDE is opened and it has opened up my project, which is the demo project that we have. And it when you will open it, it will give you the tip of the day and just close it. And now let's try to understand these folders. So as I told you earlier, this is our demo project and it contains some external libraries as well, right? And these are some libraries which will be used. Okay, let's not talk about them for now. And then what we'll do, we'll focus on our demo project, which contains the first, this IDE folder is from the IntelliJ IDE. Okay. Then what happens, this next folder that is node modules, this contains all the packages that are there with the help of npm. This also contains three most important folders for us or packages for us which we require are, I'll just scroll down and I will show you. One of them is React. Let me just scroll down. Now, as you can see that we are inside this R, as you can see that here we have, first we have React. You can see the folder over here. Then we have React scripts and then we have React DOM, which is right over here, over here. So React DOM and React scripts. So these are most important folders for us. Now let's go back. So this is the node modules. Then we have this public folder. Inside this, we will have these icons, the HTML file, which is most important for us. Everything that we will render will be with the help of this HTML file. I'll open it up also. But now, what are these favicon icon? And then we have this logo. Then we have this manifest.json. What are these? These are different files that are associated with our project or with our demo project. Now, as you can see that over here, we have something that is written, that is the command prompt. We don't have to explicitly open up the command prompt. We can simply just write npm and then write start over here to start our project. What this will do, this npm start, it will open our project in our browser, which will be the default, whatever is the default browser for us, it will open it up in the browser. And in that local, that is local 3000, the HTTP local 3000 that we have on our browser will be our project. And you will see that it contains different icons, different images that are there. We will remove all those things. Okay. First and foremost, we'll talk about this, one of the most important files. And with the help of this, we'll render each and everything on our browser. Okay. Or you can say that on our server, which is local right now. So as you can see that this contains, the most important thing is that this will contain one ID that is root. Okay. So we have this ID over here, which is over, obviously now we know what an ID is, right? So if we have to, as you can see that if you just put your mouse over here, it will give you the definition of id is a global attribute which defines the identifier, like any manipulation that you want to do, anything that you want to render right on a browser or anything that is related to. This is opening up our local host with that. Whenever we did this npm start, you can see that it is starting our development server. So it is opened up in our local browser. For me, it is Internet Explorer. Okay. So now this is the ID root and we will render everything with on this root. Okay. So it's a simple HTML file, but this is the most important HTML file for our project. Okay. Then it contains these icons, these images, and the most important file is the manifest.json over here. Then we have this manifest.json file, which is over here, right? This contains all the sources and all the whatever is the color theme, background color, all those things are present in this manifest.json. So these two files, out of these two files, the most important file is HTML file. Okay, we will not change anything in this public folder, but the changes that we will be doing is in our source folder. So we have this app.css, which is the CSS that has been applied on this. Now you might be thinking, what are the changes or what is the CSS file? What are we doing? We haven't created anything. But if I open my development server, you can see this. This is my default project. Now what we will doing, this is the image, this is the CSS that will be applied. You can see the color, you can see the underline. All of these things are CSS, JavaScript. Okay. So what we will be doing, we will remove these files. Okay. This contains all the CSS. Okay. So what I will be doing, I will just remove all the unnecessary files. I'll delete these files. Okay. It will ask me for deletion. I'll delete these files. Okay. I will delete each and everything. So in the meanwhile, what we will do, you can see that now it says that we have failed to compile this program. Okay. So now in this file, what we will doing, we will change our JavaScript file as well. Okay. And we will also change these logos. We'll delete these logos as well. We don't require these logos. Basically, we'll be dealing with only the things that we require. Okay. So similarly, you can add all the things. So we'll be dealing with JavaScript file and CSS file if it is required. And apart from that, we won't be dealing with anything else. So we'll delete all other files, all the other unnecessary files, and let it delete this thing. So in our source folder, we will be dealing only with two files, app.js and index.js. Apart from that, we will remove each and everything. So let it remove. In the meanwhile, as you can see that we have this something that is written over here, that is git ignore. Okay. So this is something that when we try to export something on GitHub, at that time, if you want to ignore some files, and those files are the dependencies, the test coverage, production, all of those files are written in this particular file. And at that time, when you are exporting, these files will be ignored. So in order to save the memory. Okay. So we have this important file over here, that is package.json, which contains all the dependencies, right? Like React is there, React DOM is there, React script is there. Okay. All the necessary files which are required are over here. The scripts, then what we did in the earlier case, right? Start, build, test, eject. So start, we already seen npm start, right? So these are all the dependencies that you have over here. Okay. In this package.json file. So git ignore, let's close this as well. So we will be only dealing with index.js and app.js, and also remove this file. Okay. Now what we will do inside as you can see that once we are over here in this file, that is app.js, let's open up app.js and index.js. So first, if you can see that this app.js and index.js, what we will do in this app.js, we will create our functional component. We'll talk about those functional component as well. Okay. So first, let's try to go back to our slides and see what are the changes that we did and what are different folders as well. Okay. Then we will make the changes. Then we'll understand the components, a little bit about components and JSX. So we already saw this package.json folder wherein we talked about these dependencies, what this folder contains. It contains the dependencies that are there, the scripts that are there, the npms which we require to run our project. Okay. Then there was a public folder in which the most important file was that there was a single HTML file named index.html, right? Which will help us to run anything on our server. We won't be editing this file as of now because we'll be using this file to render. Okay. And all the components that are there in your app.js or in your index.js, we will render those components with the help of this index.html file, which was present in the public folder. We also, with the help of the which ID, that was root. Okay. And this will be displayed on our browser. This was the public folder. Then this was the default application that we had, right? So we removed our CSS. We will talk about only this file, this folder, right? app.js, and we will also remove this. We will not do anything about index.css. We'll remove this as well. And we'll be dealing with this. That is our index.js file and app.js file. So these are the two important files, and we will be removing the rest of the files. Okay. This was present in the source folder. Now, what we will do, once we have removed and we removed the logo and we removed CSS files, okay, then what we will doing, we'll be making changes in app.js and index.js. Now, what we will be doing in app.js, right, we will be creating this file, okay. We'll be creating this functional component in this app.js, and this is how you create a functional component. So you write function, that is the keyword, and then the name of the component, which is app, okay, then the parenthesis. Then functional components will always return a single thing, that is, it will always return a single component, okay, or you can say that it will always return a single element. So as you can see that this is the main div over here, just like we write anything when we create div tags in HTML. This is similar to HTML, but this thing is something which we'll be covering later. This is nothing but our JSX. Okay, now what we are doing, we are creating one div and we are naming this as app. And then what we are doing, we are creating a header, naming it your first React app. That's it. And then we are closing our div. Then we are closing our return, and then we are returning this div. So at most we are returning only single element, okay, from this functional component, and we can only return one. It can contain multiple divs inside, but that can be done. But here what we are trying to keep it as simple as possible. Then we are exporting this app, that over here, with the help of default. We have already talked about these two different ways, with the help of default and without using a default keyword, right? Now what we are doing, we are exporting it. Now in our index.js, what we are doing, we are using this React. We are importing React from React. Okay. So what is this? This is because, since as you can see that we are using over here, we are returning something. So basically there is some internally, there's a different code that is there. We will talk about it, which is create React element. Okay. So as you can see over here, this is the functional component, this is the class-based component. And what we are doing internally, when we are returning something, internally what is happening, we are using this thing, react.create element. So whenever we are returning that element, we are basically internally using this function create React create element. But that is something which is way too complicated. So it has been simplified for us that you try to return your element in this way. Okay, so that is why we have to import this React from React. Similarly, same thing is happening over here. Then we are importing React DOM in order to render our components on the browser. And then what we are doing, we are importing this app that we have exported over here. Okay, we are importing that as well in this file. And then finally we are using this React DOM. There's a method which is render, and we are rendering our component, we are rendering our element, which is app, which is what we imported over here. And we are passing it to the ID, which is root, which was present in our index.html file, which is present in the public folder. Do you remember that? Right, we'll talk about them as well. Now, there is, I have covered almost everything, but there is one most important thing, that you can create your components in two ways. One is the functional. You can create functional components, okay? And you can create a class-based components. Now, class-based components are not used that much, but you should still know, okay? To render anything on DOM, you require to create, you need that import React from React, right? Because you're rendering something, and plus internally it is using that create element function, right? So how do you create? We have already seen it. This is how you create your functional components. And if there is some CSS that is there, you can import that as well. But since we have already removed those files, so we don't require this statement as of now, okay? But you can always add some CSS. Similarly, we can create class-based components. How do you create them? Again, in this case, you have to import this component part so that you can extend it, which is nothing but you are inheriting these properties. Okay. You use the extend keywords, and this is how you create a class based component. You will use this keyword that is over here, class, and then the name of the class, and then there's a render method which you will be using. And then what you will be doing, you will return in the similar way in like we return in the functional component, and then finally we'll be exporting it. Okay, so since this is not used that much, so that is why we won't be focusing on this, but you should know that there's another way, that is the class component can be created. So we talked about functional components, we talked about class-based components. Now, finally, you might be thinking, what is this code? Is this HTML code? No, this is known as JSX, which is everything that you see is written in the lowercase, everything except the name of the app. As you can see that everything is written in small letters, and you can see that this is the name of the class. This can also be changed. Okay. So everything that you see is treated as JSX, which is something that is looking like HTML, but it is a JavaScript with syntax extension. That is what is known as JSX, JavaScript with syntax extension. And alternatively, you can also use this command, that is react.create element, and it will at least have 3 arguments, and those arguments are your element, the configuration, and the text that you want. Okay, similarly, as you can see that the text is nothing but your first React app, that is our text, these are our elements, and then you have the configuration as well. So rendering in that way is a little bit complicated as compared to this, because we already have a hold of HTML, so we can easily return in this fashion. Now what I will be doing, I will go in my project. Now what I will be doing, I will go in my project and I will make these components and try to render something on my browser. So this is our file, right? And we will be basically, you can see that we are importing these logos and app.css. We'll remove this. This is inside, we are inside our app.js. So what we will be doing, we'll try to import those things, import React. We know why we are importing these things, right? From React. And then what we will be doing, we'll have to remove all the dependencies. Okay, we shouldn't have deleted those things, but we should have kept them there without anything in them. Okay, so anyways, so now what we will doing, we'll create this functional component. So since we don't have any CSS, we won't be importing any CSS file. Then we have this functional component, and in this, what we will doing, we will not return anything in such a way. We'll be just using this app name, and inside this, we'll simply create one head tag, h1 tag, and we'll say this is our first application, right? Done. So this is how you are rendering it. It will just say, please create this component. Now we have our first project, or I can say that first component is ready and we are exporting it. Now what we will be doing, we'll go into our index.js file, which is opened up here. And as you can see that we are using this index.css, index.app. We have to keep this app over here, and we are not importing any vitals as well. Now what we will be doing, we'll be rendering our component. So we'll keep it as simple as possible. So this is, we removed, and what we will do, we'll say render our component, which is nothing. Render our component. Okay, let's remove these unnecessary spaces. We will render our component, which is nothing but app, right? So this is a way to create and close our components. Okay, so done, and we'll remove this as well. Okay, so this is how you render your component, that is app. Let's save this. Let's save this as well. And let's minimize this. Let's minimize this. And now let's try to run this. As you can see that we, in the start, we tried to run our program, right? Wherein we saw the logo and all those things. Now, once we are saving this file, We don't have to again and again run our project. It will be directly, we will be able to make the changes directly over here. So let's press enter. As you can see, we don't have any CSS, right? We don't have any CSS, we don't have any JavaScript associated with it. We just created one simple component, and it has been rendered on our browser. That is, this is our first application. This is our first application is written on the screen, and we don't have any CSS because we removed all those unnecessary files. Now you can create those CSS files, you can add some JavaScript, that is up to you. Okay? You can add some more components, you can render some more components, you can make anything, right? So this is a simple demonstration of how you can start your app, creating your application with the help of create react app tool. And these are all the folders that we talked about. Okay, now there is this source folder. Inside this we have only this is for git ignore, is for GitHub. Package.json contains libraries, all the scripts that you have, all the dependencies that you have. This is locking your dependencies. Then you have this readme file, you can read it, and this is something that is external libraries. Okay, so in this way we created our a component. We created our functional component app. We rendered it with the help of in the index.js file. We rendered it, right? And then finally we rendered it on the index.html, which was the file wherein we had that root which was present in the public folder. Okay, so this is how you create. This is the basics of React. Now let's try to summarize what we learned in this course. In this course, we first talked about the prerequisites, like what is HTML, what is CSS, and what is JavaScript. Then we talked about this library that is known as react.js and why we should learn this. Then we talked about single page applications and examples where like Facebook, Gmail, Twitter, etc. Then we talked about the local setup, that therein we talked about the things that we require. That was Node.js and that is for development server, and the editor, any editor, right? We use Sublime Text. You can go for any editor like Visual Studio or Atom. Then we talked about the steps involved in create React app, wherein we talked about each and every step and we how we go through the steps involved in this create React app tool. Then we talked about the next generation JavaScript features, like we talked about the let keyword, the const keyword, how we use arrow functions and why they are important. Then we talked about export keyword, import keyword, classes, spread operator, rest operator, and destructuring. Then finally, we talked about the basics of React. I want you to introduce you to Great Learning Academy, a free initiative by Great Learning. You can access over 200 plus courses with 1000 plus hours of free content on trending high demand domains absolutely free. Register now to complete the course and get your free certificate of completion. Check out the link in the description of the video below. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I want to request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any new updates on video releases from Great Learning. If you enjoyed this video, show us some love and like this video. Knowledge increases by sharing, so make sure you share this video with your friends and colleagues. Make sure to comment on this video, any queries or suggestions, and I will respond to your comments.